but the ending is going to be beautiful, just like the film. So thank you very much, everyone. Are we going to enjoy our time tonight? Yes, it's going to be very light, it's going to be engaging, and it's going to be for us because we are family. So thank you. I am Raga Olga de Silva, or Totally Out Now, as you know me. I'm very happy to be here, and I'm very happy to see some empty chairs because normally there aren't any empty chairs in the room. So thank you to the Nehru Center. I was here 2 weeks ago. I think some of you were here, so thank you, friends, for coming back. And 2 weeks ago, I launched my book called Untold Lies here. And those of you who know about my journey would know that when I was growing up and when I was younger, we didn't have stories, we didn't have representation, we didn't have anything that we could refer to in the past. So if I felt gay, I was just basically feeling happy. And it is wonderful to see filmmakers who are now sharing content. You may have seen some new Bollywood films around which has content around this subject, LGBTQA. And I'm very proud to be a part of that world now. And just as a reference, a film that I wrote, a story that I wrote during lockdown was optioned to Onir, who's made some fantastic films called I Am, My Brother Nikhil. If you haven't watched it, please do. And he's kindly decided to make a film that on the story, loosely based on my story. But I can tell you it's going to be a beautiful, magical love story. I'm very pleased to be amongst 3 award-winning filmmakers tonight. And I can't wait to get them here on stage. So I'm going to start. Now, if anybody wants to take photos, wants to do social media, please feel free. None of us are shy. We'd love to have your thoughts, your feedback. There's going to be a video recording, so if you're asking us questions later, please be aware there's a video recording that's going to be uploaded on social media as well. So I'm going to have to read the bios. They're quite long, but I'll keep it succinct. I don't think any one of us needs any introduction here. We're going to keep this brief, 25 minutes to 30 minutes of interaction, followed by your quick Q&A with you all. And then you can join us all and have a one-on-one interaction with the filmmakers and any one of us here. There's Neeraj from Lotus Visual, as you've met him earlier. So let me start the introductions. We have Arun Fulara here. Arun, please, can you join us here, please? So Arun is a writer, filmmaker based out of the city that I was born in, Mumbai, Bombay, India. Welcome. So you watched Arun's film, Sunday, and so thank you for bringing that to us, and congratulations again. Arun has also made several other films that have, including My Mother's Girlfriend, which I absolutely loved as well. And he's been on an interesting journey himself and has won numerous awards. So welcome. We have Shiva Raichandani, whose trailer was most suspenseful. Shiva, thank you for joining us, and what a beautiful film and what a beautiful smile. So Shiva has got a very interesting stories. They were born in Hong Kong, raised in Dubai and Indonesia, educated in India, and currently based in London. So a perfect global citizen. Anywhere else you want to go after here?
Oh God, where do I not want to go? As much as I can travel. Testing.
At the bottom here.
Testing. Oh, it works. Thank you for that very kind introduction.
So, I mean, there's lots to Shiva, and you can look them up. There's Pradipta Ray here. You just watched Pradipta Ray's trailer, Muhafiz the Protector. Oh my God, it still gives me goosebumps. Welcome, and thank you for joining us, and thank you for those who have come from India for bringing a little bit of sunshine here. Please, that's wonderful. Now, 30 minutes, so we're going to keep it, just a reminder. Okay, so I'm going to start with Arun.
Yeah.
Arun, your film, Sunday, I mean, that we just watched, 10 minutes, right? In 10 minutes, you were able to portray so many different emotions. I saw insecurity, I saw jealousy, I saw crush, I saw love, I saw a double life. So, why did you choose Sunday as your debut subject?
Well, I think it's the other way around. The story kind of chose me. I had worked in the industry as an assistant for a few years, and I was looking for a subject to make a film in. And typically, because you want to kind of do it yourself. And I was at a barber shop one day, and I've been going all my life. And this guy touched my cheeks this Sunday, and I felt it, and which is very unusual because I identify as a straight man, and I've never felt that, right? And then that's kind of set me thinking, what's happening. And then I kind of realized that I'd been in the city as a writer, leading kind of a very lonely existence, and very devoid of intimacy, and and I think that's why I kind of responded like that. And while sitting in on that chair, essentially is I kind of kept thinking, because as writers you're constantly, like, every situation is is a potential film now. So I was sitting and I was thinking, and if it was not me, if it was someone else, if that person had a crush on this guy, but it's almost like you can hug the person, right? It's like you are in the other person's arm, but you can't express. Then I mean, it just came to me sitting there. So I just the film is essentially, there's not nothing much, like there's not much of a story. It's about building up to that one moment in the chair where it's a one-sided crush which we've all had, and I just had to go back to my teenage years, and you want to get a glance, you want to be in that place where that this person is going to be, and you want to kind of be there, but you don't know what you will do if that person kind of starts talking to you, because no words will come out. So yeah, I mean, like, I mean, I knew I had worked with Shrikant, who's the lead protagonist, so I really wanted to work with him, and like everything kind of clicked together. I knew who I would cast, what the film would be about, and yeah.
So Arun, while you were responding, you said that you identify as a straight man. So then in that case, as a straight man, how easy or what were the challenges you faced making LGBT, content subject?
So, I mean, the film is as much about loneliness and the lack of essentially intimacy and touch in our lives. Um but then, of course, I went on this journey to kind of get the details right. I did a bit of research. I met with friends who put me on to other friends who are from the community, and I think in that research, what came out was, so I'd written a draft of the script, and in that research, when people read it, they kind of added from their own experience. So a lot of people kind of validated or corroborated, and that kind of led to a addition of details to the film, to the story, and uh, and yeah, I mean, uh, I mean, I come from the belief that emotions are universal, and everybody kind of feels love, hatred, desire, in the same way. Like, of course, manifestations would be slightly different, given um, gender and sexuality, but we all feel and we all behave in certain similar ways across cultures. And so I did a bit of research to kind of validate my script, but I went forward with that belief that a person would behave in a certain way, and it's very, like, it's a very universal you know feeling of having a crush on someone and not being able to kind of say anything. So yeah.
Thanks, Arun. I think you said something very beautiful, that it is emotions are universal, right? And I know that a lot of people, when they speak with me, sometimes they even question, they kind of think that just because I am with another woman, I'm in a relationship with a woman, I am different to them if they are identifying in any other way. And I keep telling them, it's universal what I feel. I feel all the emotions you feel. So why am I that difficult for you to understand? You don't need a script to understand me. I am this person. But interesting, I'm going to come to Shiva. Shiva, your film is magical.
Thank
That's
you.
the word. You know, when I sat there, in fact, it was so magical that I actually wore this from my first marriage, by the way.
No way. Oh, you look
That's-
lovely.
Thank
look
you.
lovely.
So, I've only been married once, so I should say the only marriage. But Shiva, that magic that we all felt, and during the trailer, of course, we could have felt better. But that magic that I sat there and I felt, and I thought, my Lord, this feels like a film from everybody's life. All of us would love to live that life. So, what made you choose that subject, and how did you navigate so many characters and so many different things that were happening in that film?
I like the way that you mentioned magic because I think a lot of the times as queer people, we don't grow up thinking that these are possibilities for us. This, whether it's finding love in that form or experiencing a wedding or marriage or just joy in the forms of chosen family and stuff. So yes, loads of selfish reasons. So I was like, if I can't have that, I'm gonna like make a film about it and bring all the people that I love in the community who are doing absolutely incredible work. I want to work with them. I want to collaborate with them. So let's bring everyone onto the project. But yes, in terms of like challenges, it was because we were lucky enough as a project to create over 120 jobs for people who, I mean, are minoritized in the community and artists who don't generally get the opportunities to showcase their work or be a part of a project like this. So that was exciting, and obviously we've got incredible contributors. We fundraised. The community really rallied behind us in that sense in terms of making this a reality. But obviously the world had other plans in terms of throwing us into a pandemic and stuff. So managing over 100 people on a set with all these new sort of supervisions, and we had COVID supervisors suddenly on set, and then trying to get everyone's schedules, timings all aligned. So that was the biggest thing. But I think once we were on set, everything was so seamless and so beautiful because everyone brought their heart to the set, and it wasn't difficult in that sense. I think as soon as everyone was in that one space, we were in it very fully and enjoyed the process as well.
So, while you were making that film, did you think that your film would get into a film festival and in the way that it did?
I mean, one can only hope, right, that their film is experienced by a lot of people, and the labor of love that's gone into it is sort of, again, shown and showcased as widely as possible. So we were hopeful, and when it did happen, very grateful, because again, it's acknowledging that sometimes it's very rare for stories like these to be platformed on, again, world stages as big and prestigious as the BFI Flair. So that was very exciting and very humbling as well for us.
Beautiful. Now I'm going to talk about the dark subject. Probita's film is Pradipta's film. Why did I call you Probita? Pradipta, sorry. Film takes me back to my time in India. In 2003, as we all know, there were Godhra riots, and I don't know how many of you actually experienced it, read about it, but I know it touched all our lives in some way or the other. I believe it took you a few years from the time you thought about this subject to actually bringing it to life. So, what was that journey like, and why this subject?
That was actually for the first time in my life, I was um, experiencing some communal violence which is taking place because we almost, I mean, some of us in India, we are just born and raised, and we probably die in a bubble, right? And till the time you're exposed to something, I mean, the realities of life. And so it was based on true event. So my then flatmate, who is a Hindu Gujarati boy, it's his story, right? So and what was very I think interesting aspect of the story was the fact that um, I mean, we all have differences, and we have all have our standpoints, ideological or political or religious or beliefs, right? But that still doesn't really stop us from helping each other and being there for each other. So I thought that is probably the universal sort of message, or by default, this story had, and it needs to be told. Yeah, I mean, in this film, probably you have two characters and their, identities, sexualities, their fears. There is this person who identifies as trans, who is got Islamophobia, and the person who is a religious minority, is homophobia. And what happens when they come together? Right. So that was interesting, but I think because the message, or the main soul of the story is so universal. Like, it so works in today's context. I mean, what is happening in Europe? We have to, like, it's humanity which is going to stay with or without all the ideologies and politics and all the conflicts.
I found it interesting that within that short time, again, like what we just spoke about earlier, that you were able to bring so many emotions. For me, it was an edge of the seat short film. I kept thinking, I wonder what's going to happen. Really, I think and when we talked to the audience after, I think that's the feedback we got, that people were just thinking, what's going to happen after? And the ending is absolutely brilliant. But there was that moment that stayed with me when, the person from the minority community says that, we are both in hiding, basically. So why are we not helping each other? And I think, to me, that's kind of stayed. And that is it. I think all of us are in hiding. None of us fully live our truth. I do now. It took me 50 years, seriously, to do that. But when I was researching for this particular panel, one of the things that I kept looking at about you said that trans filmmaker. And I was intrigued by this. Why do people feel the need to label somebody a trans filmmaker? Why aren't you just a filmmaker? And what are your thoughts on that?
Well, very difficult and profound question. So, the answer would be having many sort of parts, but I mean, very briefly, I would try to explain why it is important. Because I also believe that I'm just an artist. An artist, theoretically speaking, should not have any gender, any religion, right? Artist has to be fluid, right? But unfortunately, we are living in a larger world where people need labels. And then at least in Indian context, I would say, I mean, I'll use Indian context. I've not lived in any other country as much as I've lived in India, so I can just talk from my experiences that in India right now, people know that this is male, this is female, and in between there is this huge range which is our community. And for many years, I'm talking about the modern society, Indian society, they have a lot of myths which are associated with the LGBTQI plus community. So they at times think that, if so-and-so school has a teacher who's gay, probably they'll think, the parents would think that if their children are safe or unsafe. So I think right now in Indian context, it's very important to say that a trans woman can be a filmmaker. So when I'm teaching at the biggest design and the most the oldest and the most famous design institute, which is a government institute, I would tell my students to tell them, I don't need to, they do. They actually tell their parents that we have a teacher who is otherwise dressed up. I'm otherwise dressed up in so-called menswear, and they would tell their parents that, oh, but she is trans. And for the longest time, I did not care about my pronouns. But my students actually, taught me that no, you have to be politically correct. So I think it's important for people also. I mean, I know ideologically, or as far as the theories are concerned, I might not believe in a lot of things, but that makes the larger, say, the society's understanding very difficult. So it's for that.
Interesting, isn't it? It's food for thought for all of us, because you talked about pronouns. And I encourage those who are not aware of it to do ask people how they would like to be, called. I know you want to say your pronouns, and I know yours. Yeah, what's
Yeah.
your
She and her.
her.
Yeah.
And I know, and there is a moment in the film that you talk about, which stayed with me. Again, please watch the film if you haven't, Kwe Parivar. And in that film, you say, I feel liberated. And it follows by something, and your grandmother says, oh, she thinks you're talking about something else, and then she stops. So can you tell us about your pronouns, and how do you feel about, when people call you maybe, or, mispronounce you, misgender?
I'm very fluid with my pronouns, so anything works. I usually just go with they, them, but I'm happy if anyone calls me anything else, that's fine. In terms of the liberation thing, I think that was important because we tend to not sort of give importance or credence to sort of the fact that sometimes all we need to do is shed a lot of these shackles of heteronormity in our life, heteropatriarchal sort of notions in our life, and being trans, being non-binary allows this room for expanse and fluidity that sometimes can be liberating. I'm still trying to hone into it. It's not something that is constant. It's a hit and miss sometimes. The moments of liberation are fleeting, but it's holding on to those and realizing that it is a possibility. So, yeah, it's about that.
Thank you, Shiva. I love that word, liberating. I think that's something that I felt the day that I came out, and I didn't come out until 2 years ago through my book. And so to me, when I watched Sunday, Arun, I saw towards the end you showed this, after this person, your protagonist goes back home to his real life. You've shown a child in the background and a mother, his wife in the background. And to me, and I said this earlier as well, there's a double life. A lot of us lead that double life. And I know while that may not be the message that you were giving, but how do you feel that cinema has changed over the years, and that we, people like us, don't need to lead these two lives? But I also know a lot of people do. I know so many of my friends still do.
Well, it's a very broad question. I think, I mean, like globally, I think cinema obviously, has, you know, evolved quite a bit in terms of representation and stories coming from the community. India, I mean, of course, if you talk about India specifically, I think. I mean, there have been movies, but if you just talk about the mainstream, and I mean, I watch regional cinema as well, but that's limited. So if you like, I can only obviously talk more about the Hindi cinema landscape, and there, I mean, for the longest time, I think there was a huge problem, and there still is, in terms of how people from the community are portrayed, which I think was the problem also in Hollywood, in terms of having stock gay characters as laughing stock, really, gay and trans characters. But I sense that moment, I think, is kind of passing in terms of mainstream. Also, there is this sensitivity that we can't be that crude anymore. Of course, people will still continue to make, I think, and that will still continue to sell. But more and more, I sense that amongst writers, amongst filmmakers, there is that necessity, I think, which has been forced by the zeitgeist, that they have to be politically correct, because they get called out now if they make those kind of stupid mistakes or stupid assertions. So that, I think, is a very hopeful, today, I think, is a hopeful moment. And I think Pradipta can obviously also talk about that. And I sense that in the next 5 years, because I think there have been a spate of, I mean, feature films. It's taken a bit of time, but I think short films and documentaries, there's been a spate of really interesting, realistic depictions of people from the community, and that's kind of seeping into mainstream also. And that's only going to increase, because there is a awareness that you have to be correct politically, otherwise you get kind of taken to shreds. But yeah, I think Pradipta can maybe talk about that.
Okay.
Pradipta, please go ahead.
Okay. No, I think if you look at the OTT platforms, many web series, Indian web series, and which are like really big budget with big stars, and they actually have LGBTQI plus representations as sons, daughters. There's one with Sushmita Sen, which has the cop who is investigating the whole case. He's gay man, and parallelly his love story with his partner is running. So we have changed, and I would really thank media also. Other than the activists and people who have fought for it, I think it's media which has publicized and taken it to the world, and given a platform and started the discussion. And people, at least in big cities, they are, I wouldn't really say open to, but there is some kind of normalization which has happened, and which I always want to do through my films.
I love the word normalization. And we'll, I think, need to have another 30-minute panel to discuss
I think
that.
it'll take 1 hour.
1 hour then, next time. But, very interesting, I'm going to park this thought in all of us, is the narrative changing so much that people like me, and I'm going to bring back to my life, that I don't have to be in hiding. I don't have to, first of all, be married. That was the pressure that was put on us at that time. Or I don't have to be in hiding for 20 years anymore, because it is normalized, it is mainstream, that I am no different to anybody else, and love is universal, and emotions are universal, and I don't have to be tied down. And I hope that whether it's short films or documentaries or feature films, that we all, that's what we're all involved in, writing, that we are all able to really actively, collaboratively, together, each one, all the individuals sitting here, together we are able to change the narrative. And like you said, I think we are the ones who are getting the brickbats for it. The future generation will sit and have laddus every day.
No, but then they're really cool. I mean, we were really. I'm very lucky to be born in this transition generation where we have really experienced a lot, and maybe some hardships, a lot of it. But I'm very happy to be a part of. I'm born in this generation where I've experienced change, not only in the LGBTQI plus scenario in India, but a lot of change India as a country, as people, as culture has gone through. So, given a chance, I would have chosen this time.
Oh, how lovely. I think I love that as well, that we're part of a transition, and that we are part of that, the voices that are changing the narrative. And whilst it is very difficult at times, because I still get death threats and I have horrible trolls, but I still feel stronger by the day that, it's okay to be who you are. As long as you accept yourself, that's enough.
But I think there is a lot of hope with the younger generation and people whom I teach, and like every year there's like every 4 or 5 years there's a different generation. Now I think the generation gap is like every 2 years or probably every year.
So I've got hundreds of generations difference between the next person that I will talk to, Shiva. So Shiva is that person we're talking about, the generation that is giving us
Okay,
hope.
I'm not that young. You're
Well,
giving me too much credit. Thank you.
well, okay.
It's all a deception.
We're not going to ask you to reveal your age. I reveal mine. Hey, but Shiva, that really brings me to the next question. And I know we're running out of time. I've been getting indication, but this new generation that we're talking about, new generation of filmmakers, and like I said, coming back to your film Kwe Parivar, you made it like exciting, joyous, memorable in that manner that you're going to somebody's celebration. So do you think that that is your message, that you want to bring in positive stories?
Yeah, I hope so. I hope that is definitely the intention of the film. I think a lot of our narratives a lot of queer narratives tend to stem from sadness, death, violence, and while all of those things hold true and are still prevalent in our lives, I think we should have room to explore beyond it and see how we can archive and document joy, celebration, positivity, because I think that's important as well for us to hope and dream for good things in life. And yes, definitely that's one of the reasons why QP exists, is to showcase positivity and joy in all forms. And it comes with people from across age groups as well and from different faiths. So it's not homogenous in its experience. It's everyone experiencing joy in their own different ways, but also without discounting the struggle and the trauma that people need to address and deal with, which is, again, definitely part of the film. But yes, for me, I think it was important to create that stamp of positivity through the film.
I love that, and I love the title Kwe Parivar, because to me, this is what we have created, right? And my parents or my mother and my family ostracized me, cut me out of their lives for a long, long time. So I felt one day I was feeling very victim-y and sad for myself, and I said, hey, there is magic in the air, and we have to create the families that we want. And that's how I have a wonderful soul family here, chosen families, and all of you are. And my children also extend that into other families as well. So this, suddenly my parivar is extensive. I've lived in New Zealand, I live in London now, I'm in India, and I can tell you this totally out now is totally out now, thanks to people around us. So that parivar is very important.
Yeah, I think it was a nice way to also question the ways in which we define family, or the visuals that we attach the concept of family to, and how we can break away from that heteronormative nuclear sort of vision of a family that we have, and appreciate that family comes again in different forms across our lifetime, in different contexts, in different ways, and how we share love with people who become our chosen families, and which, again, chosen family is still family. It's not any different. So it's acknowledging that it can come in any form.
Yeah, thank you for that, beautiful. We have paucity of time, and I could speak with you forever. I'm going to invite Neeraj, our co-partner for this event. Neeraj, please, can you come on stage? And there is a chair behind the curtain. So I'm going to start the Q&A. We'll keep it very brief because I think we all need a glass of wine as well, right? So I've got two questions that I want to ask but one of the first question, Neeraj, to you is, let's say somebody has an idea and they're thinking that this idea could turn into a short film. So what happens from that point of an idea to actually getting into a film festival?
So we should introduce Neeraj. Before that, he's the producer of two films here, and he's the producer of another film of mine. So he's a producer.
Okay, sorry, my bad.
Producer
I'm
of
going to
your
use.
films.
Sorry, Arun. I'm going to be the cool 20-year-old. My bad. So Neeraj is a co-producer of several films, and that's Sunday and My Mother's Girlfriend,
My
Mother's Girlfriend, and Kwe Parivar.
So yeah, I've been quite blessed to be associated with all these projects and these amazing artists here. We were talking about the change that's coming and the generation that's changing, but I would like to point out the fact that these filmmakers are the ones that are bringing that change. They are making these conversations happen. They are feeding in these new ideas to the new generation, or encouraging the generation to have these conversations. So you all are very much a part of the change, and that gives me immense pleasure to be associated with all of you and your energy that keeps me going. So coming back to question that Raga asked, whenever you have a story, usually the first thing to understand is this a viable story? Would people be interested in this story? Is this a personal story, or is this something more universal? Is it specific to a particular community, but at the same time, can it connect with the other communities? So once we understand the story and its possibilities, we then convert it into a script. And then the script becomes, then we start associating. If you are not the one who's going to direct the script, then we need to associate a director with the script. Then we need to start making the costing. How much is it going to cost, and who are we going to cast? What is your ambition here? Who is the director? At what stage of life are they in? Are they beginners? Are they seasoned? Do they need to transition into something bigger? And accordingly, we then start associating the talent and so on, because each film is like a stepping stone in a director's career. Each film is leading them to their next stage in life. So we have to kind of structure that film accordingly. Once the film is done, once the cast is associated, once the budgeting is done, we need to then start finding funding. There are multiple sources of funding. There are few benevolent people. Humaji was an amazing example here, that encourage people such as us by funding some of these projects. And I'm sure that there are many people here who have collaborated. I'm not going to embarrass all of them, but many people have been generous enough to give their time and energy and money to make these stories happen. Once the funding is done, there's another source of funding as well. You could reach out to grants. There are amazing amount of grants available, especially in Europe, UK, and America, and Canada, where the filmmaking ecosystem is much more stronger, and it encourages new talents. So you could then go and reach out and apply for the grants, and that is another way of funding. Once the funds are in place, you then start preparing a schedule. You can get into what is known as line production and actually shooting, and that creates the raw material for the film. And that raw material then goes to post-production, where we start editing it, where we then start adding sound to it, where we start doing color correction, and putting titles, captions, posters. Everything all comes together into these beautiful pieces that we see that have been created by these filmmakers. And ultimately, then starts the journey of how are you going to get this message to people? Are we going to use film festivals? Are we going to use a direct distribution? There are lots of ways of distributing this. So depending on the message, depending on the director's ambition, we work out how we're going to proceed. So then we choose what film festivals might be the best ones to tell the story. Fortunately for a South Asian LGBT film, we have multiple avenues. We have the mainstream festivals of the world, we have the mainstream South Asian festivals of the world, we have the LGBT festivals of the world, and we have the LGBT South Asian festivals of the world. So this presents us a wider opportunity to tell the stories. There are some amazing specialized festivals coming up that give trans people a chance to tell the stories, or non-binary people to tell a story, or stories that involve maybe food, or story that involve a certain aspect. So you then strategize what gives your director and your story the biggest mileage. And then starts the festival journey. After the festival journey is done, then we need to start understanding where is the final resting place of this film. How are we going to recover the money back? Short films rarely recover the money back, unless you're like Arun, who wins the national award at one of the biggest awards in India and helps us recover all the money. So congratulations. But there are limited opportunities. But here again, depending on where the film resides, it will also reflect positively on the director, which platform has it gone to, and so on. So that you find the appropriate platform, and that the film rests for the rest of its life. And that's the journey of the film. But most importantly, what is not part of the journey of this film is piracy. Unfortunately, many of the people take shortcuts. They don't want to pay to the OTT platforms, and they they pirate the films, and that's not right. All these people have gone through tremendous amount of hardships to make this film, so we should discourage piracy, especially for short films or smaller films. We're not studio films definitely, but even for the independent short films and independent films, we should definitely discourage piracy. So that's
Neeraj made it sound so easy. Easy, right? Any filmmakers here? Or any potential filmmakers here? Anybody? We've got two there, producers. So, any questions that you have, please feel free. That's the time to ask. Aditya, you got a mic. एक मिनट मैं अपना माइक देती हूँ नहीं नहीं कोई बात नहीं मैं नीचे नहीं आऊँगी
Okay, perfect. I mean, for the others, मैं English में तर्जुमा कर दूँगा. I'll translate in English after I speak in Hindi. वो मेरे लिए बेहतर है convey करना मेरे feelings. तो इतनी खूबसूरत आपने फिल्में बनाई हैं, शुक्रिया उसके लिए. प्रदीप्ता आपकी फिल्म में मतलब जो दोगलापन होता है इंसानों में वो सब में होता है, वो दिखाया आपने, शुक्रिया. शिवा आपने जो मतलब queer joy को दिखाया है उसके लिए शुक्रिया, क्योंकि नैरेटिव एज you've said कि बहुत ज़्यादा नेगेटिव रहता है, तो इट्स रियली नाइस टू सी दैट. एंड संडे छुअन टच को दिखाना जो हम लोग देख ही नहीं पाते हैं कभी और उसको एकदम भूल चुके हैं, वो दिखाना बहुत ज़रूरी है. सो शुक्रिया अरुण उसके लिए. मेरा सवाल ये है कि जब आप लोटस फिल्म्स के जो नुमाइंदे हैं उन्होंने बताया कि कितने स्टेप्स होते हैं फिल्म बनाने में, तो हम लोगों का एक्सपीरियंस ऐसा रहता है कि मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि हमें और लोगों से ज़्यादा 10 या 20 गुना ज़्यादा मेहनत करनी पड़ती है अपनी जगह बनाने के लिए, अपनी आवाज़ उठाने के लिए. तो आपको लगता है कि आपके सफ़र में, आपके तजुर्बे में ये रहा कि आपको जब आप प्रोडक्शन हाउसेस के पास जा रहे थे, अपनी फंडिंग के लिए मेहनत कर रहे थे, कहीं आपको ऐसा लगा कि आपको औरों से ज़्यादा मेहनत करनी पड़ रही है अपनी फिल्म को, अपनी स्टोरी को आगे रखने के लिए ताकि आपको वो फंडिंग मिल पाए? For the others, what I've asked is like, it's quite common for the queer experience to be that it takes more effort for us to perhaps gain the space or get the space that other people get who are not queer. So I was asking the filmmakers if they think that they had to go through that experience where they had to work that much harder to get their stories heard in front of the right people, get that funding, just because you're talking about queer narratives and it's not mainstream.
Who would you like? To,
I would love all three filmmakers to give their perspectives.
So like Sunday was funded entirely by me, and then of course by friends of mine, Pooja in the audience. So I didn't really go anywhere else. So didn't really face that problem.
I think there are multiple factors that go into this because it depends. Even within the queer community, you've got people who have privilege, who have access, who are in positions of power, who, in close contact with people who can make those decisions of who gets funded, who doesn't get funded. But speaking personally for my own self, I didn't come from a film background, so that in itself was challenging to get into this space as someone that needs to prove sort of the worthiness of the story and why it should be something that should be made. So that in itself was a challenge. And plus, a lot of the funds and grants are, again, favor people who've got experience and stuff and who've got knowledge of the film landscape. And then, again, multiple factors. So for me, it was... And then there's obviously the general understanding and experience of queer filmmakers who are often told that their stories aren't commercially viable or don't have a place in the larger scheme of things. And when you present something that's intersectional with several layers of identities, whether it's race, ethnicity, skin color, gender identity, sexual orientation, things that obviously coexist for us, but to the white dominant industry may seem too much or sort of too complex. And so trying to get them to understand that these experiences are as valid as any others because we exist and our stories deserve to be told and be seen on the largest of screens. So again, it was difficult at first because I didn't know where to go for funding. There weren't that many avenues. So I began with crowdsourcing from the community, which was great because that allowed the community to come together in very nice ways in which everyone mobilized to contribute in whatever way they can, even if it was not monetary, but word of mouth and stuff. So that was great. But then obviously I got lucky in finding an executive producer who came halfway through the journey and helped fund. But that also, she came in out of goodwill because she was this elderly Pakistani lesbian woman who resonated with the story and felt that this was something that deserved to be told and made. So that helped as well. So the journey was non-linear, and again, not so traditional, but we're grateful that it got made. But again, everyone's experience is so subjective and personal. So for me, it was quite the journey from social media campaigns, in-person fundraisers, donations from the community and outside, and having an exec producer. So that was my journey again.
Okay, first of all, thank you for your sweet words, sweet and kind words. So, for me, it's like I would say when I started off making short films, I I can say it's like one of Rabindranath Tagore's songs. One line, it just says it all. Jodi tor dakshuni